After 6 months of waiting, it's finally here, my new handheld, the Steam Deck. It's time for a reckless rundown. Alright, I got a brand new toy, and let's see if we can dip our toes in the water or what this bad boy is all about. Well, the packaging is kind of simple, got a quick start guide right off the rip, and everything else is pretty plain. I mean, we got our AC adapter. One thing I did like is the fact that obviously it comes with a travel case, and it's nice to see that they put the Steam Deck in the travel case and then in a box to ship. You know, at least it shows that they feel like it's going to protect it enough during shipping that it's usable. Now, I have no idea what this strap is going to be for. Maybe they expect you to put the AC adapter back there if you're going on trips with the Steam Deck, but I don't see how that's usable. Let's get in here and look at this thing. Now, obviously, this isn't a review of the device. This is just my initial first impressions. I'm opening this for the first time right here on camera, and I gotta say, it is big, but it doesn't feel too heavy for the size that it is, and everything feels solid. I do like the clickiness of the buttons themselves. It's nice to have these back buttons here. The front buttons, everything feels premium. The triggers, the analog sticks, D-pad, the regular buttons. I'm not sure how I'll use the trackpads. It's nice that they're included. So I think it's time we fire this motherforker up and see what we're dealing with here. We got our volume controls, a headphone jack, USB-C power, and the power button all on top. Alright, you might have noticed a jump cut, and that's because I didn't pay attention to the quick start guide that stated power must be plugged in for the first time you turn the device on. So now that I did that, we can go through all these settings, do our Wi-Fi, do our login to Steam, and see what we got going on. Well, the first thing that we're greeted to when it first turns on after getting everything logged in is a bunch of tips, tricks, and guide points that Valve's trying to help you understand the device with. I think that is nice and helpful, but I kind of clicked through them pretty fast because I just wanted to see what was going on with this new toy and get right into the business. Now, I must briefly mention that I'm slightly an idiot and the focus is just a tiny bit off here. You can't really legitimately reshoot a first impression of things, so you'll have to bear with me. I do promise that when we jump to other features later, it does get better. Now, once the Steam Deck finally let me in, of course, I checked for an update, and of course, like everything under the sun, it needed one. Here I'm going to install my SD card. I used an A2 V30 card. You can actually use an A1. I don't think you'll notice any kind of performance difference, but I wanted to format this A2 to get it ready to install some games so we can really see what this thing is all about. Now, I do have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, but I wanted to install games on both locations just to get the most minor of performance comparisons. So I'll be back in a second with some installed games. And holy HE double hockey sticks, I am back. Wow, that didn't take long, did it? I have my Xbox Series controller connected through Bluetooth just to make it easier for myself while I'm controlling and recording things in camera. So let's head on over to our game library where we can see what's up. And the first thing you'll notice is we've got a couple little tabs here. One of the things that's great is it gives you a section of all the games that run perfectly on the Steam Deck that you have in your library. Then you have all games, which you can filter and sort, the games you have installed, and then your non-Steam based games all the way to the right. And that's an interesting tab, but we'll touch on that a little later. Just as an initial impression, I decided to install games that were either playable or perfect for the deck at the time. I figured I would trust Steam when they decided to tell me that something was unplayable. So first up, let's see how God of War likes to perform. They do say it runs perfectly. I do have to say that I did cut out some loading screens just to save us some time so we weren't just sitting here waiting for things to start up. So here we are, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Granted, this screen is only 800p, but for the size of the screen and the fact that it's a handheld and the image that you're looking at, it performs great. Everything looks as good as you would expect it to on a handheld device. Now obviously you can't really compare running God of War on the Steam Deck to running God of War on your PlayStation 5, but I mean, come on, you get to play it on the go, on your couch, on a train, on a plane, at a friend's house. What more could you ask for? You have such a premium game and one of the best story-told games there are, and the fact that you can take it on the go already has me impressed. Just as an aside, it was really hard testing some of these games and then not wanting to just sit there and actually play them for a couple of hours, because they're wonderful games and it is so impressive to have a handheld device that can support some of these AAA titles that we're not used to seeing in handheld. So God of War was perfect to me. It ran absolutely fantastic, and I figured after God of War I'd want to see what Spider-Man was like. Spider-Man is a lot of quick movements. I do have the Steam Deck locked at 40 frames a second, which I will touch on later, but in no part of this game did I feel like I was losing an experience in playing it. It plays just like it did for me on my PlayStation 4 Pro, and the way that it plays for me on the PS5. Obviously, like I said before, it probably can't compare itself to the PS5 version, but it does such a great job of being the entire game on the go. Dad joke of the video, I do think the Steam Deck can fully handle the weight of this game. Now that we've filled our superhero fantasy, let's get out of Spider-Man and see if we can try a game that's only playable by Deck standards. I chose the Mass Effect Legendary Edition because this game series is my favorite of all time. What's nice about a game that's only deemed playable is that the Steam Deck will let you know the compatibility issues that it has, whether it's a launcher issue, not being able to read text, needing to use the touchscreen, or maybe you need to invoke the on-screen keyboard to be able to input some text, which is what this game mentions. I'll get quickly right through the settings. It did make me launch through the Origin launcher, but it wasn't as painful as they kind of make it seem. And this game, now that I'm in it, now that I'm playing it, plays absolutely perfectly. The only compatibility issues were the launcher and needing to use the on-screen keyboard every now and then, and to me that's not a big deal. And the second you're in the game, you don't notice anything. You're playing Mass Effect on the go, wherever you want, and you're playing the best version of Mass Effect with this Legendary Edition. Now would be as good a time as any to talk about the quick setting menus and the things that you can do inside of this, whether it's the brightness, connectivity to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, your game rumble even is in here. But one of the things that's nice, if you go down to battery and its performance, there are a lot of settings in here that you can do. In terms of performance overlay, you can do like a simple frames per second counter up in the corner, or you can go as extreme as you want to and let it show you everything that you want to know. Battery consumption, RAM utilization, GPU, CPU temperatures. For me that's a little extreme, but I do like to see just the frames per second every now and then, see how smoothly we're running. Like I said, I do have this currently locked at 40 frames a second because it does let us do a frame rate limit. You could put it all the way to 60, which is the max frames per second that the screen itself can do, and then turn the limit to off. But I figured I would leave everything at 40 because most games are perfectly playable at 40 frames a second, and it does help with battery performance, give you a little bit extra life. Speaking of battery performance, you can actually change how much wattage you're using out of the 15 watt power consumption that this has access to, but I haven't seen any need to mess with the thermal design power. I would see this maybe if you had an emulator and you were running old school games, maybe Super Nintendo and whatnot, you could turn down this TDP and then you'd get a lot longer battery life because you're telling the Steam Deck it doesn't need to burn through as much since the games you're playing don't require it. And there's also a scaling filter that affects the resolution and just how nice and shiny everything is looking on the Steam Deck. I really haven't played much with it. It's nice that they have all of the options, and if you're confused about what some of those options are and what they mean, it's easily looked up on Google. It is awesome that this quick settings guide here on the side has so many things to offer right off the jump just by hitting that button instead of having to dig and find and buried settings right from the main menu. Let's get ourselves out of Mass Effect now, and we can head over to the actual main settings, down to the storage area, because like I said earlier, I did install games both on the internal storage and the SD card. And I'll be honest, I didn't notice any playable performance issues between the two. Felt the exact same to me. So next up, let's go over and try something new, which is the fact that we can stream from our computer to the Steam Deck if we have a gaming PC with Steam installed. So that's what I did with Control. I have Control installed on my computer, and yet here we are streaming it through my Wi-Fi directly to the Steam Deck. And it's playing flawlessly. I'm not noticing any lag whatsoever. So it's kind of amazing that if you want to play some of your games sitting on the couch, you don't even have to waste any kind of storage. You can just stream it right from your PC to your Steam Deck, and everything is exactly what you'd want it to be. I am super impressed with Valve's remote play and what seems to be almost zero lag. I can't notice anything at all while playing this game, streaming it through my Wi-Fi. Now, if we want to talk super impressive, I have Cyberpunk 2077 installed on my gaming PC through GOG, but added it to my Steam library, adding a non-Steam game. So if I go over to the non-Steam games, I can stream it through remote play directly from my PC to the Steam Deck, even though it's running through GOG. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. There's no lag whatsoever. Again, like I said, super impressive that this is something they were able to pull off. It was a little interesting doing the launcher through my Steam Deck itself. It briefly gave me an entire shot of my desktop, almost like I could remote play my desktop, which I'm sure at this point in the lifespan of the Steam Deck, there are tips and tricks on how to do that kind of a thing that people have already done. And maybe that's one of the ways in, is to stream a non-Steam game using remote play. But like I said, here I am, playing Cyberpunk 2077 through my PC on the Steam Deck. And again, absolutely fantastic that this exists. I'll have to apologize for my lousy shooting here. It has nothing to do with lag streaming this game over remote play. It has everything to do with the fact that I just suck. Alright, I think we've all had enough of my lousy shooting. Let's get out of Cyberpunk and see what it's like to run Xcloud through the Steam Deck. What's really nice is that Microsoft themselves have a tutorial page to install Edge browser onto the Steam Deck, and it gives you everything that you would need to input to make Xcloud run appropriately. And it makes perfect sense that Microsoft would support this because they want Xbox Game Pass everywhere. They want everyone in their ecosystem. But it is nice that they actually have the support page that I'll put a link to in the description. So check it out, especially if you've already got a Game Pass subscription. It makes no sense not to. But again, it's super refreshing to see that Microsoft is actually playing ball with Valve for the Steam Deck. Because at the end of the day, why wouldn't they? You know, this is just more revenue for them if they can get people to play Xbox on the go. Now you might have noticed that I'm actually using the Steam Deck's controls to do all of this, and that's because my Xbox controller through Bluetooth wasn't working the first time that I tried. I don't know if I set it up incorrectly. Well, to be honest, I did set it up the first time incorrectly, thought I could do it without their guide, and then decided that I definitely needed their guide because it is pretty intensive that first time inputting all the correct things to get this to run the way that it should. Here I am playing Forza, and unlike doing remote play, I actually notice lag here. It is making the cars feel a little heavier than they should, but it's not unplayable. This is just me being awful at the game with a car that's way too fast and trying to adjust myself to the lag. But again, like I said, it's actually not unplayable, but the lag is there. I also did test out Halo 2. I didn't take any video of it, but that actually performed a lot better than Forza does here. Maybe it's because it's an older game and not as much information has to stream, but either way, like I said, with Forza, I am experiencing some lag, not to the fact that I want to pull all of my hair out and punch myself in the face repeatedly, but enough that it's making the game a little bit more difficult. So, another super convenient feature here is that the Steam button, when you hold it down, there are a lot of Steam shortcuts that you can utilize, whether it's bringing the keyboard up as a quick launch to be able to type things on screen. Maybe you want to take a screenshot. Maybe you want to use the trackpads as your mouse control. There's a whole list of functions that could be done using the Steam button shortcut. Now, I will say one thing that I did notice with these back buttons, I haven't utilized them in-game, but just pressing them, you want to press them like you're pressing back into the screen and avoid the feeling of wanting to squeeze them to press them. They are harder to press in if you're squeezing the buttons as opposed to tapping them into the back of the screen. I think when it also comes to first impressions, we're all kind of curious about the size of the Steam Deck and actually how big it is. And the best thing to compare it against would be the Nintendo Switch. We're all pretty used to how that feels in hand at this point. It's been around since 2017. Whether we own one or have touched one in stores, I think that's the best way we can get a look at actually how big the Steam Deck is. So I have my Nintendo Switch OLED here. And as you can see, just putting them side by side to each other, the Steam Deck looks massive. Screen-wise, not so much. The Switch OLED actually has a bigger and brighter screen, but the entire footprint of the Switch will fit inside of the Steam Deck. Unless you're like me, I actually do not use my Joy-Cons as my regular controlling devices. I have a Heyyy split pad that I use. It's better for my larger hands, and to be honest, once you install those on the side of your Switch, it then makes the Switch kind of comparable to the size of the Steam Deck. It is still lighter and a whole hell of a lot thinner, but for all of the things the Steam Deck can offer you, I kind of think that it's forgiven on being a little bit more of a chunkster. Thank you for joining me on this reckless rundown while I sat here and played with my deck. I hope you liked what you learned. I know that I've had fun the last day, but yeah, Valve's Steam Deck. Like, subscribe, and ding the dong thing.